Special Agent Frank Lundy from seasons 2 and 4 of Dexter was one of the smartest characters in that entire verse. He was known for being a rock star when it came to solving serial killer cases, and you could very easily make the argument that if not for James Dokes, Lundy would have eventually caught Dexter. Being able to frame Dokes was really a super convenient way for Dexter to escape justice, and without Dokes to pin the blame on, I do think Lundy eventually clocks on to Dexter. In fact, many of the show's viewers seem to believe a fan theory that Lundy secretly knew about Dexter all along. But all of this conjecture to the side, I'm here today to ask a different question regarding Frank Lundy. Could this rock star special agent solve the Kira case and catch Light Yagami? Naturally, the biggest thing to address with any what-if scenario like this is how do we merge these two worlds? And in order to do this, I'm going to place Light in Miami. In this scenario, Light will be a college student, so a few years older, and will be attending the University of Miami during a year abroad in the United States. And while walking out of class one day, Light stumbles upon a death note dropped into the human world by Ryuk, and our what-if scenario is officially underway. This means that Light will lose his immediate police access, which he only had through his father initially, and there will be no Misa with the second death note to aid in his mission to become God. In our new scenario, Light would start killing some local criminals that he saw in the news, and a pattern would soon be established, with dozens of inmates suffering coincidental heart attacks. After hearing some rumblings about this very odd pattern, Special Agent Lundy's interest would be piqued and he would head to Miami to investigate. Now, in this scenario, I'm going to remove Dexter from Miami Metro because, well, I already made a Dexter vs. Light video, and I feel like if Dexter is involved, he would probably take action before Lundy figured anything out. So in essence, it sort of stops being a Lundy vs. Light scenario if Dexter is present. Now, given that Light would need access to police records to truly carry out his plans of ridding the world of crime, starting with Miami, I believe Light would seek out an internship opportunity with Miami Metro in order to access this information. Given Light's stellar grades, he of course would be granted the intern role. And with Light now being able to sneak around Miami Metro and access more information than a typical citizen could, sort of like Dexter does in the original series, I believe Frank Lundy would come to a major breakthrough. The culprit they're looking for is either a member of Miami Metro or has access to their files. Lundy was able to deduce that the Bay Harbor Butcher was familiar with crime investigations off of Dexter's manifesto, so I do strongly believe he would come to a similar deduction based on which criminals are being killed by Kira. Now, here's where things get tough for Special Agent Lundy. His name is public knowledge, and he does not know anything about how Kira kills his victims. So if Light Yagami was threatened enough by Lundy being able to narrow down his focus to members of Miami Metro, there's a good chance he just writes Frank's name in the death note and takes him off the board. And in all honesty, I do think this is the most likely outcome of a clash between these two fictional geniuses. However, maybe Light thinks killing Lundy right after he comes to this major breakthrough in the case would create too much suspicion. I mean, he could run the risk of essentially confirming Lundy's theory by killing him, meaning the rest of Miami Metro would still be on the hunt for Light. So in this alternative scenario where Light is a little more cautious and doesn't just kill Lundy immediately, how would the rest of the case go? I believe Lundy would interrogate people at Miami Metro individually, similarly to how he confronted Dexter about his spotty blood work in the original series, and I imagine a conversation between Light and Lundy would be fascinating. So Light, you start interning here, right around the time that the Kira murders start to intensify. Moreover, there were no Kira murders until you began your year abroad. Strange, don't you think? Now, Lundy has a pretty good feel for sniffing out serial killers. He was immediately suspicious of the Trinity killer after just bumping into him briefly. But to be fair to Light, Arthur Mitchell was acting extremely weird during this brief interaction, and Light is not going to fold in nearly the same manner. I imagine Light would be calm and composed, and not break under Lundy's questioning. Honestly, I do believe that Lundy would make Light his prime suspect just based on the timeline of the killings and a potential sixth sense that something is not right with Light. But here's the issue for Lundy. How does he find the hard proof? Elle was willing to work outside of the law and go to drastic measures in order to prove who Kira was. And without that level of pressure on Light, I just don't see a way for Lundy to actually arrest Light on solid evidence. I do think Lundy would suss Light out as potentially being Kira, but for starters, his name is out in the open and could be written in the notebook at any time. Light could even make him die by means outside of a heart attack to cover his tracks. And Lundy also just isn't willing to go as far as Elle was. Add on to this the fact that Lundy is not nearly as smart as Elle or Light, and I just don't see a winning scenario for him. I really tried to craft an encounter that would potentially give Lundy the win, but in truth, it is very difficult. I briefly toyed with the idea of putting him in the position of Ray Pember's fiancé, kind of like what I did with Dexter in the Dexter vs. Light video I made. But ultimately, no matter the scenario I crafted, I just don't see him winning. Could he come to the conclusion that Light is likely Kira if given enough time? Sure. But could he ever actually build enough evidence to prove this assertion? Most likely not. I think it's quite simple. If a normal human being without comic-level genius intellect isn't willing to work illegally to pin Light as Kira, then they aren't going to be able to. Essentially, I asked myself, would Lundy lock Light in a cell for months on end just to see if the killings would stop? Would he place hidden cameras in Light's room to watch his every move 24/7? The answer to these questions is an emphatic no, because it'd be illegal for him to do so. Thus, I think Light wins pretty handily after Lundy makes him sweat a little bit. Could this rockstar special agent quote-unquote solve the Kira case? Maybe, but he would never be able to prove his deductions or actually catch Light Yagami. Well, if you made it this far, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Do you think Frank Lundy could solve the Kira case and catch Light Yagami? Or do you think he'd just become another name written on its deadly pages? I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more Screen Stories content. I'll have some of my other Death Note and Dexter themed videos linked in the description, so you might just find something else you like. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace.